So today we're going to go over the practical tips and resources for starting your handmade business. I'm Rebecca, an artisan jeweler.
I'm Jackie, a crochet business owner and YouTuber.
The first thing that we're going to talk about is where you're going to work. For me personally, I work in a room inside my home that I have locked off to keep, family and other people outside of it, which allows me the space to do all the million things I need to do.
And I do most of my creating things in my living room. I have a whole U-shaped desk set up, but because I'm a stay-at-home mom, I would either have to do what you do and stay up really late to work, or I needed to figure out a way to watch my kids and work at the same time. So for me, it made most sense for me to put my office more or less inside my living room, and that's where the kids play during the day.
Yeah, and for me that doesn't make a lot of sense because of what I work with. I have very young kids, and so
teeny tiny beads.
Yeah, teeny tiny beads they could easily choke on. I didn't want them to have access to that, so not only do I have a whole room, I have a lock on the door, and they're not allowed in here. There's a gate that keeps them from in here too.
Yes.
It's not as easy to integrate, and so that does limit the time that I can work. So for me, I work at night. It starts when they go to bed, and then it can easily go into 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, depending on that day.
So I needed to figure out, like I said, where to work. But my stuff, by comparison, is way less dangerous. Yarn, if they got into it, I suppose, is a hazard, but they really don't touch my stuff for the most part. If anything, I have to fight them more off the crochet hooks than the actual yarn.
The next thing we want to talk about is going about getting your supplies. Do you have any advice in the crochet community on where to source from, where you might access, or where you might access information on sourcing?
See, I don't know if it's true for everybody in the crochet industry because I can only speak from my own perspective, but I have looked into buying wholesale versus buying retail. Usually if you buy in bulk, you can get a discount, but I tend to buy just through regular craft stores, Michael's, Joann's, Premier Yarns online, Lovecrafts is another one. And it's very hard to set up wholesale accounts from them. So I've just not done it because extra work. And as far as I know, everybody in my industry is yarning the same way or getting your secondhand. It's given to them.
I've seen that a lot.
Or they thrift it, or they find it online or on Marketplace and stuff and they go pick it up. So it's just not really been a thing to do wholesale. But I have looked into it, and they want to know a bunch of stuff.
No, jewelry.
That's the information.
Jewelry is a really wide field, and so I incorporate anything. But almost every version of jewelry uses bindings. Think ear hooks. You're thinking of clasps and pieces like that.
Well, see, and that's the thing with yours that makes it very different. Because on a ring, you're gonna have a ring as the base. On an earring, you're gonna have the hook as the base. In crochet, there is no base.
No.
There is just yarn.
There's just the design.
Yeah, there's yarn, and it's different colors, and it's different thicknesses, and it's
Also, wholesale, for me, wholesale accounts are kind of a necessity. But, when you first start out, you don't know that. And some are harder to get than others. Some of the wholesale accounts that I have require right now, they need to see your social medias, your website. They want to see references. And then some of them understand that you might just be starting out. And so they're going to ask for the bare minimum. They want your tax information. To get a wholesale account, you have to have your tax information. You have to be a legal business, whether that's a sole proprietor using your SSN or whether or not it's an LLC or beyond using an EIN.
SSN. Social security number, if anybody doesn't know, because I don't think all countries have that.
So your EIN is your employer identification number in America. Normally you can go down to the bottom of a site or in their menu and you can look to see if they have create an account. You'll see whether or not there's a wholesale accessibility. If there's wholesale accessibility,
it'll either say create an account or it'll say become a wholesale or.
And there's no loose situation when it's trying to become a wholesaler. So I know that some of that can get a little nerve-wracking if you're applying.
It was a lot. It was that kind of stuff. And I felt this felt over the top. I don't want to show you my social proof to my business. Planning on giving you money for my products. That's all you need is how I felt about it. So,
with my business where there's so many people in it, so many different variations,
I could
feel
see
they want to
social security number and the EIN number. It was getting personal like that.
Yeah, ours gets pretty personal, and that's a new thing. That's not a thing that's been in place for the last 12 years or so. No, that's last 2 to 3 years. They ask for social media in your website. They want to go make sure you have a legitimate business, you're marketing as a legitimate business, and that you represent their brand, even if you never brand with them. And you apply for it, they're either going to say yes or no. You can still buy from them. If they say no, you just won't have a wholesale account.
Retail price. Yeah.
And if you want to be competitive in the jewelry world, especially with findings are really important about this because it's the difference between 25 cents, 50 cents, and $2 to $3. That's a major difference when it comes to your pricing, which is something we can talk about in a further video.
Another thing I just thought of, like I said, usually in buying in bulk, you get discounts. a lot of the yarn places I shop at, the more yarn you buy, typically the more you end up paying in shipping because it makes it like heavier and yarn is big when you pack 30, 40, 50 skeins together.
I mean, shipping has made or break some of mine. So like I'll find 2 pieces wholesale, 2 different suppliers, and the shipping determined whether or not I bought from them, because if the shipping makes it equal or more than the price of the other wholesaler,
I'm just going with the other.
Yeah, because they're both giving me the similar, not exactly the same product. You're going to notice quality as they come in, and then you're going to lean one way or the other. I think that's important to note too.
Yeah, I typically buy directly from like the manufacturer with a lot of the yarn I get if I'm not shopping at the craft store. And yeah, they just make it to where like, okay, if you spend over like $75, you get free shipping until you spend like $200, and then you're paying $73 to ship your box of like 1,000 skeins of yarn. Now I gotta like break this down into 2 orders. Like, why?
Well, there's a lot of beading communities that do that too, where you buying bulk is your wholesale cost, and some people just don't need that level of bulk. And at that point, I would say look for the quality pieces so that your pieces are still nice. Even in fashion jewelry, even in just like a hobby sort of form, you still want something that looks nice. This is going to be long standing, so looking into the metal, looking into like whether or not you can see the grooves or the indentation, that's important. Yeah. People notice those things.
I never even thought about that. There's so much I don't know about your side of the business. As far as like quality goes, the yarn I use for plushies is considered lower quality because it's not like an organic animal material. I use like polyester and a lot of acrylic yarn, which is considered more or less bottom of the barrel yarn. Mm-hmm. But it's not poor quality in the sense it's like not falling apart. But that's what the kids like, and it's machine washable more than like, you know, mohair.
Yeah.
Or like
quality and pricing with jewelry don't go hand to hand. When it comes to pricing, like we can have a whole discussion on how that works.
Yeah.
But ultimately it still comes down to quality and pricing do not go hand in hand. Something that's cheaper is not lower quality necessarily. It really depends on the product, and you have to kind of look at the details of it. Can you see the grooves? Is it made with a base of metal? Is it going to plate and come off?
Yeah.
Is it really a wearable thing? Is it meant to be
actually silver or just silver in color?
Yeah, and like, are you making something that's supposed to be a display that sits on a shelf or in a jewelry box for years, or something that somebody's going to be able to go out and do day-to-day stuff? I live in Florida. There's a lot of things you do in Florida that deteriorate jewelry, so.
Oh yeah, anything with salt water, that's going to be a no.
Pool, chlorine.
Oh yeah.
Cleaning all around the world. Cleaning supplies deteriorate jewelry.
We kind of touched on this a little bit in the beginning when we were talking about where to work in your home and when to work in your home before we started talking about wholesale versus retail. But going back to where you're going to work in your home and when, because that is a big part of having a handmade business. You're typically doing it from your home. How you're going to do that work, like time management wise, that's something you should kind of lay out ahead of time. Just have an idea for, because there is so much to do in a business when you're literally your marketing manager, the product designer, creator, maker, the person who actually physically goes and sells it. When you're the person wearing all the hats, it's very, very time consuming. And it's worth noting that almost all of it is unpaid. You can, for the most part, allot the time to make the piece into your pricing of the piece, but there is no real good way to allot for like time spent doing like admin stuff or planning social media content. Like if you tried to roll all of that into your prices, I think they would be like just out of control high, which I price high to begin with. So I'm not saying you can't price high, but like there's only so much you can cover by pricing high. You're not going to cover every second you've spent working on your business. So
well,
it's
in the beginning too, it won't make sense to price super high necessarily. You should always price for like the work you put in and the worth of it. But you're going to have to kind of, as you get more efficient, learn what is actually priced into your business and what was the learning curve for you. Like, and I hate to say that, I don't think you should ever underprice yourself. You should never be like making at or less than minimum wage. At minimum wage is crazy as a handmade artist.
Yeah, because you're doing something, one, not everyone can do. Two, you're also doing something by hand, whereas and technically I'm sure there's jewelry making machines. As far as crochet goes, that can't even be machine done. So like being the person to do it, you should be, you know, making more than minimum wage for sure. But don't ever pay yourself under minimum wage. Like that should be your like starting point.
Well, and even then, I really think $1 or $2 above minimum wage at the minimum. I've seen the difference between pricing your stuff at like the bare minimum and barely making money versus pricing your stuff at a reasonable cost to grow, and the value that other people put on pieces.
If you price something that's really nice for $5, is put simply, you're telling that person that stuff is trash.
It's a perception.
And it's the same for like crochet, because I know that people are just so scared of pricing for time in crochet. And there's like this huge misconception. I've had people call me greedy, literally out loud, saying I'm greedy for pricing for profit. If you underprice habitually, I can see why you think you can't make money with crochet. But if you start pricing for time and then make even teeny tiny stuff to get your like lower income people, and then nice big fancy things to get your higher income people, then you could actually have things across all price points, so you're not excluding anybody. And that's how you serve your underpaid community, low end community of people. You don't just give them stuff away, or you can actually give them stuff away and not undercharge, because then you're hurting like other crochet business owners who actually see their business as a business because it's business.
Well, and I'm very mixed on the subject as far as jewelry goes, because a lot of people will say either lower pricing or higher pricing hurts other businesses, and in some communities that may be the case. In jewelry, that really isn't the case. We are a common business, but everybody has their own spin and take on it.
Yeah, it's so different. I've seen they've put you in line with like 4 or 5 different jewelry vendors, and like I don't think you guys even had a similar beats.
No, and like literally, like she's saying, I've been back to back with other jewelry vendors, and I've made a lot of friends that are other people who make jewelry. We don't make the same stuff.
Yeah,
we're not doing
like
the same thing.
Jewelry people. There's like ammo jewelry people.
There are people who
there's
only
how you
do beaded
started,
stuff.
yeah, with the beaded. And it all looks very different, and it all has a different price point for sure. My management.
Tangent.
Yeah, we started in like, because you're not going to be able to like price all your stuff to account for all your time. So going into your business, you should have an idea of how you want to set up the time for things, because if you try to get it all done, there is no way to ever get it all done, whatever that means to you. But like in the same day, you're not getting all your marketing done. You're not getting like all your like accounting done. You're not getting all your product making done. So figure out how you want to hit all the things you need to hit in a way that's going to be like most productive. I personally combine like time blocking and like the Pomodoro method, which is like a version of time blocking. You work in 25-minute increments. You take 5-minute breaks between, so you're getting breaks. After an hour, you take a 15-minute break or a 20-minute break. However, it's a longer break. But that allows me to touch everything I need to touch, because you know, in a day period you have a lot of 25-minute periods. It also allows me to be like more accountable. If there's something I absolutely do not have any interest in doing whatsoever, I can usually like muster up the ability to do like the 5 or 25 minutes, get it out of the way. Yeah, and it allows you to touch everything. And I've still been doing that, but I've been doing longer blocks now. But even though my blocks are now like hour and a half for most things, I don't work consistently in the hour and a half. I just like do that during that time period. How do you manage your time?
So for me, I don't do time blocking, but I do have a set schedule as far as like physical work, product creation, and it sets out time for live videos, and it sets out time for like content creation as well. And that's specifically in the evenings. I have this time after my kids go to bed where it's quiet in the house and I have the room to think and process, and like there's not a lot of interruption going on. And then when it comes to other things, I do a lot of scheduling out. And so a lot of my social media content creation is all created at the same time and then scheduled out a couple days to a couple weeks, so that I can kind of set up without having to constantly be on the go doing things.
What platforms do you use for scheduling it out?
Well, I could use Shopify for my website building if I want to, but I also use Canva. We'll do it straight from Canva.
Oh yeah, I forget Canva has their like scheduler.
And that depends on if I want to post to Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, all of them at the same time. Or if I just want Facebook and Instagram, which are my 2 main platforms, I literally will make the post on Instagram and I will use the Facebook manager and I will have it, they're linked up, so it'll automatically post on both of them. And I can change the times and everything, and say the video doesn't like sync up, so there's some sounds and stuff you can use on Instagram or Facebook that won't work on the other one. You can duplicate that part of creation. You can change the time, the day, you can take the sound out, you can change the wording, the hashtags, but you duplicate it so you don't have to redo the whole entire post.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
I've used Meta Business Suite, but
yeah,
I try to do like more than a week at a time, and it starts getting like really glitchy the more you put in it, at least when I was doing it. So I was using like paid platforms like Later. There's one called Storito, because I don't know if it's still true now, but you couldn't like pre-schedule out stories and reels. So like that was like a big thing, because they were telling you to like do a reel and a story like every day. And
Hootsuite was a big one when I started scheduling out. My mom, who did a lot of the social media marketing classes and such, she ran a lot of my social media and she showed me how to schedule out, and so that was very useful and very kind of her, honestly, because it's so time consuming.
Yeah, it is really time consuming, but it's nice to be able to like take 2 or 3 days a month, plan your content for a month and get it all scheduled out. But the trade-off there is a lot of the ones I was using do cost money, and it's not necessarily cheap to do it.
Where the ones I use are either free or they already go into the Canva I already paid for because I need that pro for a lot of the photo editing.
I liked using Canva. Canva wasn't too bad. Canva was pretty easy to use. I did find Meta Business Suite to be glitchy, and I don't know if it still is or if I caught it on like a bad week.
It works really well now, but I think it depends on what you're doing it for too. Like you said, you had a lot more posts going in than I do.
Yeah, because I was doing like a challenge from like one of the people I watch to like post across platforms like every single day. So content creation is a lot.
So that's essentially how I schedule out my time, is having that set period of time and then having things scheduled out. And then as far as photos and stuff, a lot of them you've seen I do on the go.
So the whole point of this episode was to get you guys thinking about where you're going to work, when you're going to work, and how you plan currently to lay out your like day or night if you're in her position, fine-tuning some of the parts of the plan to get the ball rolling. And in the next episode, we'll actually talk specific platforms you may or may not want to be on.
Content marketing schedulers.
Yeah, so like content schedulers, like she said, tools you can use to do the work in your business. Because a lot of this stuff, the information leading up to this point, has been more theoretical. We're going to get into like very specific stuff that you might want to look into to research for your business to see if these like platforms and softwares work for you.
All right, see you guys next time.
Okay, goodbye.
So I remember when my oldest was little, she was about 2, we had just moved here, and she got my phone, and my phone has my social media access because I do a lot of my work on the go. And she got into Instagram, went over to a random profile. I found her with my phone, and she had managed to send emojis, like vomiting gross emojis on it, which sounds hilarious, but I was horrified.
God,
I was absolutely horrified. And so like it was just literally the worst thing. It was a beautiful photo. They were sitting at a waterfall. It was gorgeous, and it was an inspirational solo. And I freak so much.
Yeah, I do. If you correspond with me on YouTube or Etsy or Instagram, everything I'm saying has an exclamation point, and I'm so sorry because I'm deadpan while saying it.
What does EIN stand for? Because I'm just known as an EIN. It's something number.
I have no idea. I thought I was going to pull something out there. Nope, not a clue. Excuse the out of me, but I thought we had a crochet business here. I don't. All that to say is, what were we talking about?